Good afternoon. I'm Sean Leatherbury, Assistant Professor in the School of Art History and Cultural Policy at University College Dublin. I'm deeply sorry not to join you in real time today, but I wanted to record a few words of introduction to the next book and its author, Elif Keser-Kayaalp, Church Architecture of Late Antique Northern Mesopotamia, published by OUP in its coveted Oxford Studies in Byzantium series in 2021. Elif is currently Associate Professor at the Department of History of Art at Hacettepe University in Ankara, Turkey, where she focuses on the art and architecture of late antiquity. She received her doctorate from the University of Oxford in 2009. That's also where we met, I think around 2008, and has been awarded grants and fellowships from a number of institutions, including the Turkish Cultural Foundation, American Research Institute in Turkey, Research Center of Anatolian Civilizations at Koç. She also received a prestigious Georg Forster Research Fellowship from the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation. She's published extensively on the architecture of the Syrian Church, including co-editing the volume Syriac in its Multicultural Context, Peters 2017, and editing a book that just came out last year on the preservation of Syriac architectural heritage. Elif's book is an impressively holistic look at the churches, urban, rural, and monastic, of the region of northern Mesopotamia in the 4th to 8th centuries CE, inclusive of the great cities of the region, Nisibis, Edessa, Amida, Dara, as well as the Turabdin, a region that is difficult to study in whole due to its position on the border between Turkey and Syria. In contrast to earlier studies of the region, which looked at texts and at Christological debates, Miaphysitism and the formation of the Syrian Orthodox Church, for example, political history, also linguistic histories, the rise of Syriac, Elif's book engages with the plans, the building techniques, materials, and decoration of churches, as well as the relationship between churches and their physical environments, their embeddedness in the cities, towns, and monasteries in which they were built. Marshalling a wide range of sources, historic travelers' reports, including, of course, the famous exploits and expeditions of Gertrude Bell, archaeological documentation, primary texts, in combination with her firsthand knowledge of these buildings, the author has produced a book that will be an essential reference for those working on the architecture or religious life of the region, as well as those who are interested in late antique architecture more generally. I was particularly impressed reading the book for a second time by the care with which Elif sorts through the interpretations of previous scholars. For example, her extended discussion of earlier interpretations of the Edessa Cathedral, known only through a Syriac poem or hymn, and the detailed way in which the book brings together the textual and the archaeological sources, which, as we all know, can be at odds with each other, often are at odds with each other. For example, in Elif's treatment of the churches of Dara, also called Anastasiopolis, known from Procopius's writings, but also from new excavations, which have revealed a building with a mosaic pavement, possibly a church, or as Elif explores, a guest house, or even possibly a praetorium. By the epilogue, the author has made the case clearly that, quote, building a church here in northern Mesopotamia was much more than a construction project, end quote. In the region, which saw a good deal of imperial investment, architectural plans current in the empire at large, the basilica, the tetraconch, the octagon, were adapted to suit local contexts. At the same time, architectural decoration, capitals, entablatures, etc., paid homage not only to Byzantine styles, and in fact, as Elif argues, held on to classicizing styles longer than other regions, including the capital, but also homage to Sasanian Persian ones. Congratulations to Elif on writing really a wonderful book, and to Petros for organizing the event and for stepping in to cover for me. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Sean. Elif, the floor is yours. You are muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Petros, for the organization, and thanks for chairing my session as well. And thanks to Sean for the generous comments and for preparing the introduction. I will share my screen and show a few slides. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Perfect. My book is based on my PhD, which I submitted to Oxford University in 2009. In the course of 11 years between the submission and publication, as a result of new excavations, surveys, epigraphical finds, translations of Syriac texts, and my further fieldwork, expanded my material and, of course, expanded the names in my acknowledgement. And over the years, I approached and appreciated my material in different ways. The region, northern Mesopotamia, is familiar, especially to scholars working on Byzantine Sasanian wars, and to Syriac scholars, especially because of the amazing literary production and because Syriac is still spoken in the region. Northern Mesopotamia has usually been studied partially, and greater importance has been attributed to some locations more than others by different disciplines. For example, Edessa and Turabdin received more attention from theological and linguistic studies, whereas Amida or Dara or Martyropolis attracted military historians. There has usually been an anachronistic approach to the church architecture of the region, which was considered in isolation, mostly as provincial architecture of no particular interest, and was treated as marginal and sometimes together with churches of Sasanian Persia. In my book, I aim to paint a wider picture while offering a regional contribution to the study of the transformation that Byzantine Empire underwent in late antiquity, and following changes in the nature of church building activities and church architecture after the Arab conquest of the region in 640. Geographically, the term Northern Mesopotamia in the book refers to the region bounded by the Tigris and Euphrates rivers and modern Turkish-Syrian border. Nisiris, Edessa, Amida, Anastasiopolis, that's Dara, Constantia, Martyropolis are the main cities that I focused. Although the book is mostly about churches, it also mentions other religious monuments in an attempt to contextualize the churches further. In the book, I zoomed in and out of churches and monasteries in their urban and rural contexts, thus sometimes with city plans and sometimes with cultural landscapes. I looked at the relationships between settlements, but I also focused on tiny decorative details. I sometimes had to move away from the tangible and used hymns and hagiography to contextualize the buildings further. After describing northern Mesopotamia as a frontier region and discussing Christological debates and Arab conquests, my book focuses on individual cities and their surroundings. For each city, we have different type of material available. For example, to give you an idea, in Amida, we have the apse of a monumental ailt tetraconch that has survived. But in Martyropolis, for example, we only have Gertrude Bell's photographs and a few capitals here and there in the city. In Edessa, we have a Syriac hymn about the famous church of Hagia Sophia. So my approach had to change according to the material that's available. In Turabdin, a limestone massif dotted with many churches and monasteries, I discussed this region separately as it stands out as a distinct cultural landscape with features unique to it. In the epilogue of my book, I tried to point out what has changed after the Arab conquest, and I contextualized the material further under the titles like church plans, building materials and techniques, decoration, builders and patrons, and Greek and Syriac dichotomy in the inscriptions. In my analysis of the churches, I have discussed the dedications, locations, monumentality, the choice of certain plan types. In the epilogue, I aim to present a more holistic view of the region, analyzing the urban and the rural together, and presenting the changes that the Arab conquest brought and the continuities that were prominent in church architecture. In the past, the extent of building and rebuilding after the Arab conquest was underestimated. By singling out patterns about decoration, reconstruction, and using epigraphy and hagiography, I argued that at least 30 churches and monasteries were built and rebuilt in the region after the Arab conquest. The Christological disputes, persecutions within the empire, the efforts of the emperors to unite the church, the formation of the Miaphysite church hierarchy, wars being by the frontier, the Arab conquest, the geography have all had impact on the cities, villages, churches, and monasteries of this region. All of these factors resulted in distinctive church architecture, not completely foreign, but innovative, with local touches. Thus, while we find external influences on plan types, decoration, and building techniques, local skills and traditions also stand out. Imperial patronage in the region resulted in monumental church architecture with distinctive plans, as church architecture was utilized by emperors to project authority, approach the locals, unite the church, and bridge the gaps between communities. In the monasteries, this patronage resulted in significant decoration. The region has been politically unstable for decades and was not secure for detailed fieldwork or excavations. Despite this, there has been encouraging work, although sometimes interrupted. My book focused on churches, but many other aspects of late antique archaeology of the region wait to be explored. And I hope that my book leads to further research in the region and stimulates discussion about some of my speculative suggestions. Thank you very much.